You're listening to the Smart Policy Podcast, a production of the University of Tennessee's Institute for Public Service. If you've ever worked in the field of recovery and live in East Tennessee, there's a strong chance that you've met Trent Coffey, the executive director of the Schools Together Allowing No Drugs, or STAND coalition in Scott County. And if you're connected to Appalachia and use Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, there's an equally strong chance that you've encountered his cousin, Andi Marie Tillman, comedian, actor, and musician who is known for her wide array of relatable characters. As it happens, Andi Marie is a person in recovery and knows firsthand what it feels like to need help from the medical system in Tennessee and how difficult it can be to get that help. In this special episode, which we, as you can see, filmed, we decided to also include some content that normally we wouldn't. Consider it behind the scenes or bloopers. These two are just too funny to not share that with you, and plus it shows the real Appalachia that you don't normally see on TV. As always, any views and opinions expressed in this episode do not reflect those of UT. Well, usually what I do is I have people introduce themselves, so y'all do that and we'll take it from there.
I'm Andi Marie Tillman, and I'm a star. At least that's what they're telling me. No, I'm Andi Marie Tillman. I am an Appalachian comedian, actor, and general. Am I allowed to say bad words? I can't remember.
I'll probably bleep it, yeah.
Okay, and I'm your papa. And and I do a lot of my stuff in the digital space. Who are you?
I'm Trent Coffey. I am the star's cousin. So other than that, I'm the executive director of the STAND coalition here in Scott County, Tennessee. We work on addiction recovery and a lot of youth engagement in the community. So been in coalition for about 27 years, one of the state's first.
Yeah.
And one of the most recognized across the nation. So
Amazing.
I was going to say, in many ways, both of you have put Scott County on the map in a number of different directions. I really think so, because on the one hand, like you just said, Trent, you're one of the earliest coalitions in the whole state and one of the fewest and most accomplished out in this area. There are some nearby counties that are still deserts for local resources. And Andi Marie, I mean, musician, actor, you've blown up out of nowhere over the past few years. And a lot of, I think, the key of what I enjoy from your content so much is just embracing the realities of the context you grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and celebrating it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think a good place to start is probably, what is your why for what you do?
What is your why? Lord, I didn't figure out how to do anything else.
That's a good answer.
I mean, truly, I think I just fell back into what I did as a kid, honestly. I tried to do other stuff. I tried to get involved I even tried to get involved in government, wasn't no good at that. I tried to be a preschool teacher, I was actually all right at that, but I think the reality of how much they got paid, I thought, Lord, I can't stay in this. I can barely pay my bills. So it's part of it is not really having developed other life skills, and just because I think Trent and I laugh about this all the time. I was always doing the dramatic thing as a kid. I was trying to perform one-woman passion plays for my family as a kid, and dressing up and being Jesus and Satan and everybody.
Andi Marie has created an outlet for her weirdness.
Yes.
Okay.
That's brilliant.
That's what she's done. Okay. She figured out how to monetize her crazy nature. Okay. That's just point blank what it is. She was what we call a change of life baby.
Yes.
Her nephew's older than her. Mm-hmm. So, and then when Andi Marie came in, and I've said this on a couple of things that we've done before, Andi Marie was the child that was going to be the savior of everybody, and everybody was going to do everything. She was so smart, and like I said before, they had flashcards, and they were teaching her Shakespeare and all that stuff, and they were just like, shut the hell up, can you read? Get out of my face. And then Andi Marie was the one that was nurtured and educated and constantly reinforced, and they were like, go outside and don't come back till 11 at night. But Andi Marie developed that personality, which has served her well because we come from a long line of performers and,
Yeah.
and doers, I guess is what you say. We're very blessed as a family to be doers.
Yeah.
So Andi Marie found an outlet for that and has done very well with it. So, and we're proud. We're very proud of her.
Well.
She gets a little out there sometimes, but we're really proud of her.
Yeah, I swear we might get even more out there. Yeah, we might spin to Jupiter before
she's been in the bird basket many times. Lord God,
Yes.
she's showing her what are we gonna do?
I think there was something very specific on there.
So she got on that phone. Oh my God. So we went through that. Now we just go, oh, that's Andi Marie.
God,
So
we
whatever.
we have to tell that story at some point. But your why,
My why? Well, I know I could go somewhere else. I think have a modicum of sparkness, and I have a passion to serve my community, and that comes from our upbringing. Because, you know, always a borrower, not a lender, always a lender and not a borrower be. I'll take that to heed. And I was raised what I consider privileged. Okay, I never had to worry about food. I never had to worry about clothing. I never had to worry about my father or mother hurt me or abandoned me, other than, you know, Appalachian neglect, which is just raise yourself.
Yeah.
But, you know, I always looked around and I seen people around me that didn't understand stuff like that, and they didn't have what I had. And I just developed a passion to be able to help them strive to create an easier way, not a better way, because the ways that people have made it in this community is amazing. If you can raise a family of 6 on a $20,000 a year factory salary, you deserve to be celebrated.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to emphasize education and health.
Yeah.
And I've many times wanted to leave this area and this community, but God would just never let me. Okay, He wanted me to stay here and uplift those that are most burdened. Okay, and that's why I've stayed here, you know, and worked and struggled and did those things. And I've been very blessed. I mean, you know, we come from a family of doers, and doers create doers, produce doers. But what about those that are not doers and they become not doers? We have got to get them to be doers. That's kind of a generic term to put in it, but we had a lot of positive reinforcements.
Yeah.
And I want people that don't have those positive reinforcements to be able to create those positive reinforcements and break that cycle of poverty and break that cycle of addiction as they go on throughout their life, so their kids and their grandkids can have a better life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, so you worked in government a little bit? What were you doing?
I worked as a legislative assistant for about 2 years, and I wasn't no good at it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
May I ask who with?
Yeah, Martin Daniel.
Interesting.
Yes, it was so what happened was I was hired by the clerk's office. And what happens when you're hired there is usually for people like me, we're just wanting a full-time position. And the clerk's office will stick you in places where, like, if one of the if an assistant quits or leaves or any of that stuff, they will stick you in there. Like Johnny Turner was a Democrat from Memphis, and I got stuck in her office for a little while. Martin Daniel was a pretty good boss, honestly, but it was weird for me. But I learned a lot about government. I think I wouldn't have realized that so many of these politicians, Democrat or Republican, actually make up their mind before they even go into committee. I feel like those committees are just for show. It's a little bit like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe some of them actually change their mind with all that discussion and debate, but they're usually making meetings beforehand, and a bill is almost always decided even before it goes into committee. I would have never known that had I not worked there. So if anything, it just served to make me more jaded a little bit. But I almost wish that every citizen had to serve in government for a period of time so they could at least see the inner workings of all that. But I don't, here's what's weird is I got put in that position, and a lot of people just continued in that line of work, obviously because they wanted to go into that.
Right.
But here's where I was like, I felt cool because I had a full-time job in Nashville. Do you know what I'm saying? I was like,
Yeah.
I'm 22 and I have a full-time job in Nashville. And so to me, I had kind of made it. Honestly, being from here, that's the way that I felt. I was extremely unhappy. It was probably the most unhappy time of my life. So I quit. I was like, I told my boss one day, I was like, I had made an album and I was like, I'm going on the road to sing. He was like, I didn't even know you were a singer. I was like, well, I am. So here's my 2-month notice. And and then I left.
And when you said everybody should serve in it, maybe like a jury duty.
Yeah, a little bit like a jury duty, so people could really see the process and see that there's a lot of pageantry involved in all that junk,
So that
which you
didn't
know
keep you
more than I do, honestly.
The pageantry didn't keep you in there? I'm kidding. But,
Oh, yeah, right. Well, if they were being drag queens, I would have loved to have seen that.
18th century clothing.
Yeah, 18th century.
Yeah.
So if they had some of the court drag, I'd be so into it. But they didn't have gowns or anything, so I wasn't. Yeah.
I would remember court drag.
Yeah.
But in that sense, Trent, on the other side of that coin, you were doing a lot of the interface with public officials by way of STAND. Can you refresh the audience's memory on what STAND is and what y'all do?
Well, STAND is it's an acronym for Schools Together Allowing No Drugs. We started out as a program and evolved into a coalition when the coalition concept started about 26 years ago. So we were one of the first 5 in the state of Tennessee to be a coalition. And a coalition is just, we work on health disparities, issues. We try to find root causes of what's going on in the community. We try to change, like I said before, poverty mindsets, try to emphasize education, and try to bring all these sources to the same table. We can't say that we're the one that's fixing it, but we know somebody that's fixing a certain problem. So we try to get us all to start communicating. We have 16 sectors we deal with, and then we bring us all together and try to come up with solutions collectively to help. We're all dealing with the same families and the same people, but we're dealing with them in different degrees. If we communicate and work together and get an action plan or build a logic model on how to help our community with the current resources that each entity has, then we can come at that solution a lot quicker. So that's kind of in a nutshell, long nutshell, of what a coalition does. We're kind of a go-to person to be able to identify resources that we have, identify gaps in resources, and then research and find where we can get funding for those services that we're lacking in our community. And not just for us, for any sector member or anybody else. If they have something like law enforcement, they're lacking in having MRT in the jails and stuff like that, I research and try to find some kind of type of funding and some professional person to come in and do MRT for the jail. In the school system, we look at their rubrics and try to see what they need, okay? We see what they're deficient in. They have to try to do life skills training or ACEs training, adverse childhood experiences. That's some stuff that they're required to do, but how are you going to take a teacher away from a curriculum to do that? So we get certified in those and bring that service into the school at no charge to them. Therefore, building our base and building our youth component as we're in there, and we're providing a service to the school and saving them money, which they in turn see that and sometimes end up funding us to be able to do things like that. So that's just a couple examples of different things like that. We work with our FQHC when they have the Federally Qualified Healthcare Facility. When somebody comes in and they're in addiction, we don't know. Sometimes it may be because they had an abscess tooth for 6 months and a year and stuff like that, and they're trying to self-medicate and different things like that. So we try to get them connected for a free service at the FQHC, whereas they wouldn't feel comfortable going before, but we can help them walk through those processes. We have a Lifeline hybrid funded through the state of Tennessee that we help people get into rehab. Before, when I started this job 27 years ago, I worked in the court system, and then people would come in and say, we got to send you to rehab. I said, okay, it'll be 6 months, 8 months, and then hang on, we'll get to you. Well, now it's not like that. We can get somebody into a placement in about 3 days. So our country and our community in that aspect has evolved. So.
Okay. I've got to follow it, but the light has changed. So Put these guys on now. Sorry about that.
That sounded great.
That was wonderful.
It's almost like you've been all over the country doing it.
I've had media training.
Yes, he really has. I would love.
Mimi Bliss. I did media training with Mimi Bliss.
Who is Mimi Bliss?
You have to look her up. I don't even know if she's still around. She was a media trainer.
Yeah.
And she taught you how to do stuff and
package things really well.
Package things and do different stuff. So.
Well, it's very.
I'm gonna be like Andi Marie.
Oh shit! I'll give you a twisher.
I'm gonna get my character Papaw Prevention going on. I am known about that in the state. I have designated myself Papaw Prevention.
Oh,
so anytime I go to DC or anywhere, I say, "Hey, it's Trent. I'm Papaw Prevention, the hillbilly from Tennessee."
Happy hillbilly.
Happy hillbilly from Tennessee, and that's the way I dress myself.
Yeah.
Is the happy hillbilly. So
I love that.
Coalitions are definitely a focal point for a lot of this sort of thing. And what we're seeing across the state, especially in rural areas, is if they do have a coalition, and that's a big if, then a lot of the times they are entrusted, especially at more like the rural municipal level, with some of the opioid settlement money. In some cases, when a county is not getting very much, we do see coalitions ending up being kind of top of the list for that sort of hub and spoke perspective, the fact that y'all are typically very, very good at finding the biggest gaps and needs, local focus, local solutions, right? In that same vein, I know STAND has received opioid settlement funding from both the county and at the state level. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about what that process was like. How did you secure that? Any advice for other coalitions in rural areas considering the same?
Well, first thing you got to do when it comes to the county level is you make sure and work with your county opioid abatement council, okay? And if they haven't got one established, you kind of have to help them do that. I'm lucky enough to have been in this for a long time, so even when the first lawsuit started, back, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, they interviewed me about 4 times before they even did the opioid settlement as a rural perspective. So I remember going through that process, going to Knoxville of a firm over there and going through it wasn't a deposition, it was just getting my aspects on what we were seeing and how opioids were affecting the rural communities. So I followed this process straight through the whole entire time. And one of our mutual friends, Karen Pershing, was on the Opioid Abatement Council for the state. So I would always call her, and I drove her crazy about how's counties going to handle this? How's counties going to handle this? They just don't understand. They don't understand it's going to be eaten up by like the tobacco money. It's going to pave roads and do a bunch of crap that we don't even need. We've got to have regulations. We've got to do things, make sure counties understand how to spend that money. Karen and the Opioid Abatement Council really set out a good set of guidelines for counties to follow. Okay, but counties weren't prepared and weren't ready. So I worked closely with our county, our former mayor and our current mayor and the council that they formed, and worked with them on helping them formulate some of those internal policies for us and making sure and following the state recommended guidelines for that opioid funding. Not as...
And you're referring to what's called Exhibit E in the agreement, that there's only so many things you're allowed to spend.
Yeah, there's only so many things you're allowed to spend. It's 5 things, but there's multiple aspects in those 5 things. And prevention is one of them. So we worked with them, got it going real well, and then they kind of worked on a grant process and got connected with a great organization to help them fill out the grant process and do that. And of course, and luckily we were funded to be able to do it on the county-wide level. On the statewide level, we were lucky enough to be able to write a good application and be funded, because out of all the money they have, I think about 15 to 18% goes to prevention, and we wrote a prevention grant for that and then ended up becoming funded for the 3 years. So we just... But coalitions, yeah, they were some of those that get some of that local county money if the county understands, because a lot of them don't understand where it goes. But that's why it's important for local coalitions to be able to research, learn, know, and we do this with PAT, Prevention Alliance of Tennessee, and they'll come out and do trainings for that. and be able to show counties what to do. We've had other counties come in and ask us how we did ours. And I said, well, ours done it right. Even if I hadn't got funded, I would have said they done it right. I mean, they really did. There's 98 counties in the state of Tennessee, 96?
95.
95. And we have about 68 recognized coalitions.
Right.
So
about a third.
We need a lot more. And that's one thing that we would hope that a lot of this money would do to help establish those coalitions, because that opens up to different kinds of funding. That opens up to a lot of state funding, that opens up to a lot of federal funding, where the schools can't do it, law enforcement can't do it, county government can't do it. We're kind of an entity that can kind of, like I said before, fill in those gaps in services and fill in those things that a lot of people are not allowed to do. Of course, we have restrictions on what we can do, but we can be very creative in ways that we can approach those in need.
Yes, there's STAND, Metro Drug Coalition, ASAP of Anderson, just thinking about some of the nearby
Roane County
counties.
Anti-Drug Coalition.
Yeah, y'all get contracts sometimes to partner with various programs from the state, like the care coordinators or the regional overdose prevention specialists. You're right, it's something that a lot of other entities like schools or law enforcement couldn't really house.
And that's kind of what, you know, you have to do as a coalition. You have to weed through the mess and try to make clarity out of some of this stuff, because this is not a lot of people's world. Okay, this is something that's hidden. This is something you try to avoid. This is something you don't really want to talk about, but it's hard to navigate, you know. And as Andi Marie and I will get into later, we can see this navigation is very difficult.
Actually, I think
it's getting better.
This is a perfect opportunity to talk about that. And I think at this point, my audience might be like, so why do you have a musician and an actor here? What's going on here? So I think what both of y'all are able to bring to the table for this conversation is what local rural recovery actually looks like. So by all means, I don't want to get in the way. I'll let y'all take the reins here.
Well, my name's Andi, and I'm an alcoholic. We'll start out that way. And a star. Well, they're one and the same, aren't they?
That's true.
But see, I told Trent the last time, I thought that when I was drinking in the heaviness of my drinking, I thought I was an alcoholic like Ernest Hemingway was an alcoholic. You know,
She was a creative alcoholic.
Oh yes, I was like, it's so romantic the way I'm doing this, because I'm getting sloshed and writing terrible songs, by the way. Yeah, so I'm a recovering alcoholic, 5.5 years, but
congratulations, brother.
Yeah, but I have seen how I feel like community and connection is like the cornerstone of recovery. And I did use 12-step to get sober. And that was here in Oak Ridge. It's still like, I would still call that my home group, is like, that's where I got sober. And it was just like me and a bunch of old men. Honestly, it was me and a bunch of men that were, most of them were over 60 years old, you know, so they had a lot of time. And that was, for some reason, that really, really worked for me, because I really needed, a lot of people need their peers, but I think at that point in my life, I really needed, I'm going to try to tie this all back around, I swear.
Sure.
But at the time, I think I needed people that had success stories, because I don't know, something about going into a lot of the recovery groups that I visited in Nashville. There were a lot of people that were my age, and a lot of them were still struggling. And for some reason, that discouraged me. I don't know. It was like I don't know. It was almost like I needed a council of elders or something, and that might be coming from a church background almost. That's my theory on it. Is like coming from a church background. It was nice to come back to that feeling, but also those men. Some of them used church language, but some of them, you know, said higher power, and it almost allowed me to retry accessing God, because I think a lot of my issues come from church trauma. And I know that word gets thrown around, trauma, a lot, but I really do think that I had just built all these there was like a negative connotation around church, and just to have me and all those old men, it was, embraced me in a non-creepy way, you know, in a non-creepy way. And I was allowed to find God again in my own way. But they all talked like me. It was back home, and it was my family actually that got me sober. My husband working together with my family that got me sober. Because honest to God, I don't know if I was consciously trying to kill myself, but I had given up. I had given up, and I didn't really make this decision on my own. And I kind of would almost want Trent to piggyback on that, because I think we talked about this. Like sometimes people do get so far gone that they need other people to help give them that moment of clarity. Like, I don't think I was drinking every day. By the end of it, I was drinking every day from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. And so I was physically addicted to alcohol at that point. And I don't know that I would have had a moment of clarity, because I was literally intoxicated the whole time. So it was my family being like, we're just not going to let you kill yourself, was basically it, you know?
Classic intervention?
Yes, it was a classic. It was.
Bring out the oil.
Because we're Pentecostals. Yeah, they did all that. And then, but here's the thing that Trent could speak to. It's like, my mom is going to approach it from her like Pentecostal perspective, and like it's a spiritual warfare and all this stuff. And that's not to say it's not, because I think these are all interconnected. The spiritual, the mind, the body, all of that is, to me, arises simultaneously a little bit, or they're at least all, if they don't arise simultaneously, they're at least interconnected. So my mom was approaching it in her way. My dad was like, what the hell do we do? They called Trent because they know that he has expertise in addiction recovery, and also has access to these resources, but like, just really like, what do we do? They had no idea what to do. My husband contacted my parents, which I kept telling him, of course, because I was in my addiction. I was like, don't do it. Don't you dare call my mother. I'm going to leave your ass if you call my mother. He's like, I don't care. You're killing yourself. You know? And he was like, I don't care if you leave. I don't care if you never come back to me. I'm going to keep you alive. So that's true love. But anyway, they call Trent. Trent comes in, and he's just looking at it for what it is. And he was just like, kind of trying to bring a little bit of reality and a little bit of mediate, like be able to speak to the spiritual end that they needed to hear, but also like, this is kind of physical at this point. You know, this is beyond, you know, just rub some oil on her head. I'm glad that worked for her hernia operation, but it ain't gonna work for this one. So
we can pray it out, but we gotta have some help.
Yeah, we gotta have some help.
No faith without good works, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she was, you know, we had heard little bits and rumblings about Andi Marie drinking. You know, your mother had spoken to me about it, or some stuff like that. And then we had some vigils where we all came over and did that. And, you know, and thank God for the family support system that you had. You know, I mean, it was amazing. Even though you were out of it, I mean, it was still the family support system. And, you know, it kind of makes you grieve for those that don't have that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't have that support system. They don't have anybody love them enough to even check on them.
Yeah.
So that bothers me a lot, too, for everybody else. But Andi Marie's ours, and we wasn't going to let this happen. I was at a conference in Berea, or a thing at Berea University, and your mother called me and said, I need you now. And I said, I'll be right there. So I left the conference in Berea and come straight down. And this was at the tippy top of Andi Marie's, I don't really like the word rock bottom, but it was one of her lower points. I think you can recover without hitting rock bottom. I don't think everybody has to hit rock bottom and lose everything and, you know, be at the worst point in their life. I think they can be at a point to where they realize they need help. I don't think we need to wait until they just hit the lowest point of their life. She was at a low point, but she was still here. She was still a little bit lucid, and she was, you know, there. So I went in, got there. It took me about 2 hours to get there. Got there. We were talking. We've got all the alcohol out of the house. We've messed up. We've done everything. She had nothing to drink, and in days, and it's just her mind. Her mind's gone. Her mind.
Yeah.
She's got to do this. It's something. We got to get her somewhere. And I said, she hasn't done anything, or she's been smoking. Has she taken any pills? Has she done anything? Trying to medicate in a different way? No, we have went over every inch of this house. And if you know my Aunt Claudia and her house, there's a lot of trinkets there.
Yeah, it's like a hobbit hole. So there are holes that she doesn't even know exist.
We were sitting there. Her dad was walking around back and forth, and her mom was sitting there. Oh, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And I was just listening, and I tried to speak to her, and she was just mostly crying.
Yeah.
You'd ask her a question. Blah. Yeah. And this is one of the funniest things in my whole career. I said, all right, Claudia, which is my aunt, her mother. I said, let me and Andi Marie go outside and just walk, and let's just get her head clear and just give me a few minutes with her, okay? So we walk outside, and I was kind of holding her, because she was so depressed that she couldn't walk, and she was so distraught that she couldn't move.
I was fumbling.
And she was fumbling, and I said, what's going on? And I said, bitch, are you drunk right now? And she said, yes! And I was like, my God. I said, they're sitting here thinking you're freaking suicidal, and you're just drunk off your ass. And I said, all right, we got to face it. Let's just go back in here. I said, we just
face the music.
Let's face the music and tell them what's going on. I said, we just need to try to figure out a safe way to get you sobered up, even if we have to detox or whatever. I mean, we have to be careful about that.
Yeah.
And, we have to, we can't just cold turkey. We have to figure out how to do this. Not for me, because I'm not an expert. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a licensed therapist. I just have a little modicum of knowledge. I can get you somewhere, but I can't do it. Okay?
Right.
I can't guide you. I can get you somewhere that can guide you. So we went in. I remember Claudia said, she's drunk right now. I knew it. I knew she was. And I went, you just told me that she hadn't had anything to drink in 4 days, and you. I knew it. No, I knew it.
I got the knowing. I knew it deep down. I was really I was seeing if you could find out.
I just testing your
filler.
Skills.
Yeah.
So I said, we just need to get on the phone and start calling people. And at the time, Andi Marie, let's call it, had a subpar insurance.
Yeah.
And this was before Opioid Abatement Council money. This is before access to recovery became better. It became as good as it is now.
You're right.
So, we started calling, started doing, she was on the phone doing that, and it was the same scenario. It was, it's going to have to take a while. It's going to do this. They'd talk to her in some, business semantics for a little bit. And I said, now you're all getting ready to really see how this system works.
Yeah.
Okay. Had this system happened to you now, had it been now, I would have had you in my car. I would have taken you to a facility. I've got you detoxed, and I would have had you in rehab in 4 days.
Yeah.
This is where we're at now.
Well, and also, so even after that, because it was days of drinking, and my body was physically addicted. So when I started going through the withdrawals, which lasted a long time, and that was there was no like medical intervention at the time. We didn't really know. I mean, he was telling us that she might need to detox. He was giving us that advice, but I don't know if we didn't heed it. I mean, we obviously didn't heed that, but I ended up like having to go into the emergency room.
Yeah.
Which ended up being kind of costly for me at the time, because I was then, I left the job that I was at, and so I was unemployed. And and it's really expensive to go to the emergency room if you got bad insurance.
Yeah.
Thank God they were able to like give Valium, which is what they'll prescribe to people at a certain dosage that
Inactive
you
withdrawal.
taper. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's an active withdrawal. But like until I got into the emergency room, I mean, I was having auditory hallucinations because I was up, like my body wouldn't let me go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because it was just like my nervous system was in overdrive. So all of those are like barriers to, like, I see why somebody without my resources, and I'm talking about community, why people will just continue to medicate. Because even if you try to stop cold turkey, like it can kill you. It's very
alcohol,
dangerous.
Yes, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's astounding to me, and I've been in this a long time, because we all know Andi Marie's a little bit eccentric and dramatic. So they kept on saying this stuff. I thought, I've watched her grow up. I know, I mean, we were a tight-knit family. I watched her go and do, and I said, even if she has been drinking, it's just been, a couple of years or something. Like, I just don't understand this. And then next thing I know, she has, abnormalities in her liver and all that stuff. So it really astounded me, because I was used to dealing with more opioid stuff, and then alcohol, I had to really research more and do that, and seeing how far advanced.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, it's classic Andi Marie. She's 1,000% all the way.
1,000%.
I'm going to become an alcoholic in a year.
I've heard that from a lot of people in recovery, that they've always been a maximalist. It's not across the board, but it is common. Yeah.
Yes, like I want to go hard. Let's go in.
And I mean,
Yeah.
and you look at that and you think of an alcoholic, and it's just a stigma.
Yeah.
You think of alcoholic as
The town drunk.
The town drunk, or somebody just stumbling, barely making it. I have other family members that have struggled with alcohol and still lead productive lives, but it eventually catches that.
Sure.
So, but hers was so dramatic and so fast. It was really astounding to me.
I think it took, I mean, my husband was living with me every day. And I remember, times, I mean, just lying to his face, of course, just like, no. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? And you have to know Brandon, he's a little bit naive. But, I think he couldn't believe that it had gotten that bad that quick. Because I'd always had like a not great relationship with alcohol, like binging and then not drinking for weeks.
Sure.
And then binging again.
Yeah.
So
I can quit whenever I want.
Yeah. But I would say it ramped up. It was about a year and a half that it took to get to a point where it was all day, every day.
Yeah.
For the last 3 months of it, it was like all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't ride that train for very long.
No.
And once the liver is implicated, that's a scary moment for sure.
Yeah.
All this talk of medical considerations, medical insurance considerations. We hear about the provider shortage, especially in rural areas. That's a big thing. We hear about beds and meds. It's very hard to access it. There's not enough treatment facilities, not enough providers within those facilities that do exist. How big a barrier is health insurance, or lack thereof, in general across the state here?
It's a major, major, major hurdle to overcome, because a company only has so many indigent beds or free beds, or whatever you want to say it, that they can give out per month, per year, per whatever. Okay, so when you have somebody in Appalachia, a lot of people do not have health care coverage. So in order to get them somewhere, they need some type of insurance, no matter what it be. Some people are not even on teen care or anything like that, and it's very limited on what it will do.
Yeah.
Yes, it is very, very difficult when you don't have some type of insurance to get somebody immediate help. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit, more often than not, on an indigent bed, and those are few and far between. One good thing about Scott County, and I've watched this evolved over my career. Like I said before, we went in telling everybody, you will give us 6 months and we'll get you in somewhere. Just hold on. Well, now we have a 30-day rehabilitation center here with murder recovery in our community. And when they first started, I'm on their council. When they first started, they wasn't getting a lot of referrals and a lot of people coming in and doing that. And they said, "What?" I said, "We've got to hold on. We have got to change the stigma." I said, "For years, we have told people, all right, you're going to hurry up and wait. And, you know, we're going to send you to Texas or we're going to send you somewhere." And that wasn't what a lot of people wanted to do.
Yeah.
I said, and now we turn around in not a split second, but in a few months and saying, all right, we're ready. We got it for you. It's right up here in Oneida. It's 10 minutes from your house and we can get you help. I said, they don't trust us. They don't understand. They're not going to come up here. They think it's a money grab. They think it's something. We've got to work at this and provide quality service and then stay consistent. So I talked to their CEO several times, and now 2 years later, they're at capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing.
Wow.
So, and they're getting ready to open up a second floor. Well, one good thing, I'll piggyback on the opioid settlement money. They've applied twice for the state money and didn't get it. But luckily, they were awarded the county opioid money, okay? The first round and the second round. So they were able to provide like 15 indigent beds for Scott County residents in their facility. But what about all the other people that don't have insurance? Okay.
Right.
We have availability of expansion, but where's the money going to come from to get them in when this money runs out? And we could go through all that money in 3 months. You know, it's not
and
very
the
much. It's
settlements
like
themselves are only,
Right.
we have another 16 years tops, I think.
Yeah.
16, 15 years.
Yeah, and then that would be good. And hopefully eventually
But
after
it's-
they will get that. But as far as legislation and the insurance and stuff like that, the regulations on that has got to be more relaxed. Okay? We have got to be able to get people into a facility or into somewhere immediately to be able to get them help. Because look at all the health disparities and all the money they're saving if they get them help early on.
Right.
Okay, we're actually to the point now, I have seen that some people are starting to realize that they're having a problem and are reaching out and asking, hey, I think I'm developing a problem. I
Right.
need some help here.
Yeah.
Which I never thought would happen. You know,
Yeah.
the cliche is, oh, well, you have to lose your house and lose your family
Right.
and then you're going to get help. But I'm seeing the tide change.
Yes.
Because we're making addiction a health disparity, just like cancer, just like heart disease, just like
Yes.
anything else, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And then start doing preventative maintenances and preventative programs to be able to take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
But having immediate access to quality services is the key.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, we need to bring up other professionals, other mental health professionals, other medical professionals to want to go into the profession, be able to pay them a competitive wage for them to go into this industry and take care of it. We're big in this rural community. You know, it's hard for us to recruit and retain qualified talent in this
Because they go
area.
somewhere
That's why
else.
we don't have big call centers. We had the opportunity once to have a big call center come in, but we didn't have the dialect or the
Interesting.
education to be able to man those phones. Okay, we've got to emphasize education for our community, and we have to home grow them. Not a lot of people graduate from college and say, I think I'll move to Scott County and build me a life. No, you're kind of homegrown here. I was mandated by my creator to stay here, okay? Fight him about it all the time. I go somewhere else and make a whole lot of money. But that's not what my life was meant to be. So now, even in our stand youth group and stuff like that, we're pushing people toward that education, that profession, that love their community. If you want to leave and go away and build your life somewhere else, so be it. But a lot of people want to come in, and they need to have the opportunity to be able to come in and make a competitive professional wage in a rural community to be able to make this community better. Okay?
You know, it's funny you mentioned the local solutions being so paramount, not just from a opioid abatement perspective, but I couldn't help but think when you mentioned the call center, it might have been a blessing in disguise that it didn't come here, because now a lot of those jobs are being sucked up by AI.
Yeah.
So like that might have been the next version of the coal
Levi,
mine
yeah.
closing, you know?
Yeah,
like
well,
a
I mean,
sudden
we're
loss of
used to that.
jobs.
We lost coal and timber, and everybody said, "Oh, you lost coal and timber," but we also lost all the satellite agencies and the restaurants and the parts houses and the, the uniform companies and all that stuff. So when coal and timber went bust, and we're coal timber babies, our family was in it and made a very lucrative living at
Yes,
it
they
at one
did.
point. My dad owned a coal company and a construction company, and they owned a lumber company and stuff like that. And then when all that went belly up, it hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we've got to be able to adapt our educational practices in our area and emphasize that to our teens. But you have to be homage to everybody else. If somebody worked in the sewing factory at Tenier and they made a good living, then that's great. If that's what they want to do, that's wonderful. Let's just pay them a competitive wage.
Yeah.
Because Appalachians, we don't care to work hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't. We'll do the jobs that nobody else wants to do, but we need to be paid for it too.
Yeah.
And to me, all of this is integral because it's saying that there's value in where you grew up, and that I took the long way around. I don't think I was ever ashamed of where I grew up. I don't think I ever felt shame. I just always thought you have to go somewhere else to do better. You have to go somewhere else to be some. And to me, even Nashville, like I remember being a kid and like not quite realizing that different cities, like there were such thing as bigger cities. It was just like a city is big. Knoxville's a big city. Nashville's really big, it's a big city. But like making people feel proud of where they are so that they don't feel like they need to go somewhere else. And so they do feel like Trent does that it's honorable to stay and be with your community. I mean, John Waters, I love John Waters so much. He talks about Baltimore, and they're like, why'd you stay in Baltimore? Why are you so, he said, well, Baltimore is, at least there's enough poor people to have a bohemia. And he said, and also, why would I move to New York in the digital age? Like, just stay where you are and make it cooler, is what he said. Stay where you are and make it cooler.
I've never heard that. I like that.
I like that too. So I guess I didn't do that, so I'm not the poster child for that. But I hope that whatever I do is to make people feel even more proud of where they're from, like proud of being from Scott County because it has culture. Yeah. And there's distinct.
We have a different culture.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of things that people may think they're making fun of, but it's a term of endearment for me.
Yeah,
for
hillbilly.
us. I mean, our slang, our talk, or whatever. When I go to DC quite a bit, and I learned early on when I was talking to politicians to up my accent 10 times to start using those little euphemisms and those. Well, that's sloppier than a pig slop, or that's nastier than a pig slop in a holler, or something like that, and then doing that. And that's how the happy hillbilly come to be. And sometimes I'll go and they'll say, well, you just talk. We just want you to talk. Just sit here and talk. Say anything, just talk. And I'll turn it up to the umpth degree.
Right.
Okay. And I use that. And then when I said that, somebody took offense to hillbilly. And they said, oh, don't say that. And I said, no, that's a term of endearment. I said, you got to change your definition of hillbilly. Okay.
Right.
Hillbilly, and Jeremy, you and I talked about this before, a hillbilly, if the apocalypse happens, I said, we're going to feed ourselves, we're going to clothe ourselves. I said, we're going to have shelter. I said, we may be inconvenienced, but we're going to survive. I said, hillbilly is a term of endearment, and it's a thing of survival. We will survive. Yeah. We may have a different way of doing things, but we have a way that we can sustain and survive. And we're real family-centric. Well, Lord, no, I'll come over and help you. Just buy me a 6-pack and a box of smokes, and I'll help you build that driveway. Right. I said, we just don't know. I said, but that's just how we do things.
Right.
I mean, it's more about connection, and, we respect where we came from. That's one of the reasons I wanted to raise my kids here, because I knew if I was in New York and something happened to Jagger, it may take them a while to get a hold of me. But now that I've raised my kids here and something happened, I knew what happened before he even knew what happened. I remember once he was 16 and went and bought cigarettes at the local convenience store. And they called me and said, "Your son just tried to buy cigarettes here."
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so I love those protective factors. And I called him, "What are you doing?" "I can't do nothing." So, but I enjoy those protective factors. I enjoy the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the stuff like that. Sometimes we fight like cats and dogs and get mad and won't talk for a year, but boy, if something happens, we're right there.
And all of that really does come through in a lot of the characters you've created, some of the skits you've done I in particular, I really like the series about the Southern clerk.
Yeah, people love her.
Yeah.
But that's just because there's a lot of people that know that figure. Like there's always like one lady that is kind of secretly running the show or keeping it together.
Yeah.
Keeping it together.
What did inspire you to embrace so much of, your family culture?
Well, like I said, I was never ashamed of that. Because I always thought my family was pretty cool. I mean, we were crazy, but there were really
Crazy Coffeys.
But they were really eccentric, and I didn't know it would be of value to me as an artist. I don't think that when you grow up in that context, it's almost too close to you to think it would be of value for the world to look on and kind of inspect. So I thought, I was obsessed with like Eliza Doolittle. I was obsessed with the other as a kid and trying to be different. But then, of course, you get out of your context, and that's what makes you unique and special. And I realized, this context that I was born in is actually really cool and worth broadcasting. And I'm so close to these characters that it just feels innate, like it almost feels like they live in my body, as woo-woo as that sounds. Like, I just thought of Papaw one day, just thinking of all them old men that sit over at DJ's and drink coffee every morning at the liar's table. And I just found a hat, I found it at not James Roberts' store. It's
Jam Brooks.
It's that one that's across from Huntsville, but it closed. He passed away.
It's J.R. Hembry's.
It's JR's store. Anyway, I thought of JR too, and so I put that hat on, and I didn't think that was gonna blow up at all.
Give us a demonstration.
And then I just kind of I was sitting there in that mirror.
And it wasn't quite,
Because sling baits more, I guess. But then I thought I just was playing with my face. And I thought there's something to this. And I run in there to Brandon, my husband. I said, "What do you think? I think this might be something."
He went, "It's something, God." But anyway, I just sat down there and I found like a little green screen of Hardee's. And I did that, and then that took off. I did not plan anything with that. And then I thought, well, gosh, I've got so many of these. I've got so many characters in my head. Why the hell not, And TikTok pays you to do it. Yeah. So I thought, I need money. Yeah. I needed it. So I just started playing around with it. And so it's taken on a life of its own. But I guess it would be, I never really felt ashamed because I had such a cool, unique family. And everybody in my family had a sense of pride in who they were, I think, and being where we're from and the resilience. I just didn't know that it would be so interesting to other people. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Really. Mm-hmm. Never feeling really ashamed.
People long for that. Some of that rich history, the Appalachian history, all that stuff. And when you said we're very eccentric, we are, but we do it unapologetically.
Yeah.
I mean, Coffeys are the ones that, you could have a big old zit on your face and it would be humongous. And out of all the zits in the world, this is the prettiest, most formed zit that has
Look at that head on
been.
it. Glowing head. That looks like a gem
God
from
gave
heaven.
me the prettiest zit that ever was. And we turn it around into a blessing instead of, that.
And I will say this, I got my sense of humor from my family. And I'll say, too, that humor has been a huge element in recovery for me. The fact that, I mean, it kind of broke up the whole moment. The fact that Trent exposed the truth of the fact that I was lying and deep in addiction, but in laughter and not like you're drunk, aren't you?
Right.
Anyway, you're drunk, aren't you? You know? Yeah, and it kind of brings levity into a dark moment. I mean, it was actually a very dark time, but it kind of busts up the clouds a little bit. And that's been a huge part of recovery. And it's brought me out of the shell that I was building around myself of nobody can know this dark part of me. I expose it to everybody now, and I laugh about it, and I laugh about the stupid things I did in the middle of it. And laughter, it's transparency. It's like it's exposing everything. It's saying everything you're not supposed to say. And my family, our family, they did that to the nth degree. Like my mom getting her cut off. Well, two aunts now have had their cut off and just
had cancer. And they go, just take them both. Look, this is gone.
Yes. They show the whole family the oh, they ain't real. They ain't real. I'm like, well, you shouldn't be showing everybody at your beauty shop your new but
her realness and stuff. I mean, that's one thing we do with one another. I remember we were recently at a wedding of a family member, and I was, of course, drinking and having a good time and stuff. And my wife said, "Are you going to talk to Andi Marie?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, are you going to drink around?" I said, "Well, hell yeah, that's her problem. It ain't mine."
yeah, exactly.
Wow. And just laughing and cutting up.
Yes.
And I told her, and she said, "That's right.
That's absolutely right.
We need to be careful around her." I said,
No.
"No, she can leave if she feels uncomfortable."
Yeah.
That's a misconception with people in recovery, isn't it, though, right?
I mean, I don't know other people's triggers. It is not one of mine. It was never really a social thing for me.
Yeah.
I was doing it antisocially.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I was doing it at my home, like I said, pretending I was Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah, 70% of the opioid overdoses are at home.
Yeah, 100%.
Alone, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a misconception. I know that there are probably some percentage of people that get triggered by other people because they did it socially. That was not my thing, and a lot of people I've talked to, it's not their thing. Do not care. I don't care if everybody, because at that wedding, I think I was the only sober person there.
Yeah.
You know, I was, but not triggered at all by that.
Well, because that can be a very difficult thing for people in recovery is they fear they're going to lose a lot of their friends. And for some people, for those with the social aspect of their use, that is definitely, for a lot of people, they kind of have to lose some of their friends at least, you know, like people who were, Trent, this is something I think you speak very well about, some of the things you deal with the students you help. That sometimes like certain social groups, you got to break up patterns.
Well, the old saying is we used to use a long time is you got to trade your playground and your playmates. Okay, so you know when you're trying to get better, a lot of this one won't hurt. Oh, come on, you used to do this stuff like that. I mean, if that's the support system that you have, then you need to find a new support system.
Right.
And even, like I said, I'm a social drinker. I'm not an alcoholic. Tried to be a million times, but but I'm not. So even like with my hybrids and stuff, when we go to state meetings and we go out to dinner and stuff like that, with Andi Marie, I was like, she's my cousin. I didn't care. But I'm very respectful to him. I say, well, do you mind if I have, a glass of wine, or do you mind if I have a beer or something like that? And most of them say, no, it's fine. I said, no, seriously, it's not that big of a deal with me, but I mean, I'm made to make sure I'm always respectful. But as far as changing your playground and your playmates, you need to find what works for you. And if it's a trigger. I mean, if somebody's going to entice you, they can't force you. I guess some people could, but if that is enticing, notice that and try to avoid that. And then when it gets to that point, you need to leave or find something else to do or go somewhere else. And it's sometimes as simple as that. Avoid those situations that are going to cause you stress. that will put you in a situation to where you want to drink or use or do or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Main thing, especially with kids, you know, before addiction sets in, you know, we try to notice the signs. You know, before, I've been doing this for a long time. You use one time, you're going to die, you're going to get addicted. We lied. Now this is true. With fentanyl and stuff like that, you can die the first time.
Yeah.
You can develop a dependency within 2 to 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
We shot ourselves in the foot, okay?
Because of
But
lying
it's
the first
true.
time, yeah.
You can do that. Use one time, you smoke pot one time, then you're going to be in under a drug addict and all that stuff. But now things are laced, it's horrible. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, and we have to keep on emphasizing that. And, you know, 20 years ago, one of my first high school meth positives was a 6th grade little girl.
Oh,
Good Lord.
Okay. So, and then that kind of changed, but that was one of the very first. And I look back on that now, and I think that was like a precursor, because we have kids vaping marijuana in 5th grade, 4th grade,
Right.
stuff all the time. I mean, the pot I grew up on is not the pot it is now. No. Okay? I mean, used to, you could get a bag when I was in high school, and yes, I have done that illegally. And you could smoke a whole joint and then be like, okay, well, woo, that's great.
Let's
Laugh a
just
little bit, do it.
munchies.
And now I see people take one hit and they're in a fetal position. I
Yeah.
see
The
it
concentrations
here.
are absurd.
You know, the concentrations are so high and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Since when does being comatose the new party high or
Right.
whatever? I was like laughing and having a good time. What
Right.
happened to that? But anyway, we try to emphasize those dangers to our kids. We don't want to scare them. Scare tactics do not work.
No.
We're about smart choices. You know,
Yeah.
make sure and knowing what you're doing. Make sure and have a support system with you. Make sure have somebody around you. Am I naive to think that everybody on my youth group is perfect? No. But I do want to emphasize to be smart and make smart choices.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, that's really cliche that the knowledge is power. But I will say, like, transparency is really key. I think even for my own recovery, I explored all kinds of different modalities, I would say. I was doing 12-step and I had the community there. But also, someone gave me, and I think this was a huge part of it too, they gave me a book. I think it was by Alan Carr. It was called Alcohol Explained. And it was explaining the scientific process by which addiction is made. And it was almost like somebody took my brain out, my little alcoholic brain out, and I could look at it, and I was like, oh, that's why I can't drink one drink. That's why literally, it's not just the woo-woo thing. Sometimes you lose faith in the woo-woo thing. You're like, well then why could I do it this time and not? But in a very scientific way, it was explained to me why after building, like you've built up a chemical memory, basically, that the next time you drink, your brain remembers this, and it's trying to reach the dopamine response that it did before. So it's just like, this is my addictive brain, and this is why I will never be able to drink one drink of alcohol again.
It was like training any skill, training on guitar, training.
Yeah, it just like laid it out there. It was
just builds it up
It was
over
the
time.
theory of it.
Yeah,
It was the
interesting,
theory,
yeah.
and that really hit home with me. But also like the process of trying to drink just one drink and not being able to. I'm sure that also reinforced that concept of like, this is just true. So I believe this to be true now. Yeah. And then the reinforcement of the people in 12-step kind of just saying, you know, kind of like give your will over to a higher power. Yeah. And that really did help me also. I think it all worked together is what I'm saying. So transparency and giving people all the tools that you can.
You know, lies and scare tactics never work.
They don't work.
We just got to be honest. We have a huge youth following at our youth group in our coalition, which that's our main focus is prevention. And people across the country when we go to conferences and stuff, and they see that we have 140 at our off-site youth coalition monthly. They say, how do you do it? I mean, you've got to be consistent. You got to show up when you're going to say you're going to show up.
Yeah.
And one phenomenal thing you have to do with these teens is you just have to listen to them. That's how we gain more support and more engagement than anything, is we just listen.
Yeah, that's the exact opposite of the experience I had. Andi Marie, we're both millennials. Right now it's Gen X and millennials dying of the highest rates of overdoses and alcohol-related deaths. I remember being lectured at, being a school resource officer coming in showing us horrible pictures and saying, you know, this all or nothing, it's all bad, it's all horrible. And this was well before fentanyl was a problem. Do you recall stuff like that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I recall DARE and all that kind of stuff. It was the same way with abstinence training. It was an all or nothing approach. It was a lot of like gory pictures, scary things. But then you get out into the real world and you're like, actually, sometimes it's cool. It's cool to screw and drink.
Well, that you were seeing people not dying.
And people were not dying, people were having fun because that's what youth do. But had somebody, I don't know, if somebody had said, had just been real about it.
Just been honest and then meet them where they're at and talk to them about it. You know, you made a bad choice. Let's try not to make that bad choice again.
Why?
Yeah.
What's
Do you
going
see
on?
what's happened? Yeah. What's the cause of this? Okay. And then, you know, mental health is humongous. And I thank God that mental health has become a big issue, and it's kind of become an issue of what I see is it's kind of cool to have some mental health problems now because, you know, you kind of have an excuse, and we just got to have more resources for mental health. One of the ways that we could curb opioid addiction, alcoholism, is have more mental health intervention early on. And I'm not talking in a group setting, and I'm not talking, and God bless high school counselors, they're wonderful, but they're not mental health people. We need people to have a consistent therapist and be able to work on issues. I was asked at a conference one time in Nashville, they said, all right, unlimited, if you could have anything you wanted, and this has been several years ago, and this is before mental health really took off. But if you could have anything you wanted, you had an unlimited budget, what would you have? I said I'd have a licensed clinical social worker for every school, for every grade, to let them service our kids. That would make the world a better place. If I had one wish, that would be what it would have. What would be is to have that counselor in those schools for those kids, seeing them on a consistent basis and talking to them. Not once every 6 weeks, not twice a year, not just when trauma happened and you talk to them for 10 minutes.
Right.
I learned this through my own journey. I preached mental health for a long time, and then I started realizing, Lord, I got some crap I got to deal with too. So I found me a mental health professional and have been going to therapy for over 6 years. And it literally saved my life too. And there was some stuff in there, and we was going over ACEs and all that stuff. And he said, oh, you teach ACEs? And you know, I said, yeah. And I said, well, I don't have any, but I said, you know, that's what we teach in school. And then we got through it. And he said, you've lit this thing up. You're checking all the boxes. You're doing all this stuff. And, you know, and then started peeling that onion. Peeling that onion back. And I started realizing, you know, because I was in a bad way. Thoughts of inadequacy, and I'm always down on myself, and you're a piece of crap, and you never do anything right, and all that stuff. You know, I mean, and that's just stuff that I deal with constantly.
Yeah.
You're never going to be anything. You didn't do that right, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
So I have to work through that consciously.
Did that tie into being told to just go outside and deal with yourself?
Yeah, kind of. They would just like figure it out. And that's, you know, with this job, you know, we kind of had to figure it out as we went, you know.
So
We had to help create the runway as we was flying down it, you know.
This is a good place to ask our usual last question is you know, what do policymakers need to consider? Especially, I would say, it sounds like all our talk about local stuff, I think that is worth touching on, like what could be done better locally. But I think it'd be really valuable to think about the state or even federal level, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about Appalachia. What do you think they need to hear about how we can improve local recovery efforts or mental health efforts?
Well, as I said before, we got to have access. We got to have quality access to services to be able to treat the people in our community. We have experienced some cuts in this new administration and are looking at some more. One of the things I would tell my policymakers, and I've been on the phone with congressmen and senators and stuff like that, we have got to keep on emphasizing prevention funding and recovery and support funding, especially for rural areas, okay? We've got to look at our local hospitals, different things like that, because if something was to happen and we didn't have our hospital, which we have it today, we may not have it tomorrow. It's 45 minutes to an hour to get to an ER. That's ridiculous. So we have to look at bills. We have to look at funding streams. This is not wasted money. This is money that has really impacted a rural community. One of the first grants I got was the first federal grant. We call it the end-all be-all grant. It's a 5-year grant, but the whole entire grant is $125,000 a year. We are running a whole entire prevention organization on $125,000 a year, less than one salary of a staffer in DC. Okay? Do you want to regulate my funding? Do you want me to have certain criteria? Of course, go right ahead. Let me use it for what I need to, and then scrutinize me and make me show you receipts and make me show you everything. That's fine. We're used to that.
Right.
We don't want free money.
Right.
We just want money to help build our community to where we can become successful and profitable and get back to that Appalachian spirit, that innovativeness. If we can learn how to smoke meth out of a light bulb, then we may be able to cure cancer.
Hell yeah. Innovative.
Innovative. My dad owned a construction company, and it was slash coal company stuff, and we had this pan, those big things that moved the earth and all that stuff. And they had to order a part, and it had to come from somewhere. And our mechanic, pseudo mechanic, great guy. He had a 6th grade education, but he had what we call common sense. And my dad was like, "This is costing me thousands of dollars a day. I've got to get this, this pan fixed." And he said, "James, I think if I could do this and pull that off that and fix this and do that," he said, "I think I'd run for a little while. Now it'll overheat a little bit, but we may have to stop, but it will fix it for a little while." Dad's to try it. So he tried it, and it ran until the part came.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dad," I said, "how did he do that? I just don't understand." And he said, "Son, it's about opportunity."
Yeah.
He said, "If that man had had the life and the opportunity that I had," he said, "he'd have far outdone anything I've ever done." He didn't have a mommy. He didn't have a daddy. He's got a 6th grade education. He said, "But if he had had my opportunities, then he would have been amazing." That's what we want for all Appalachian people. We want them to have the availability to the opportunity. We don't want the government to feed us. We don't want the government to clothe us. We don't want the government to keep us down. We want the government to give us opportunities to be prosperous. We want the government to give us opportunities to get educated. We want the government to give us the same opportunities afforded to everybody else to build a better community.
Yeah.
We don't want to be kept down and just pacified. We want to be pushed. We want to be innovated. We want to work.
Yeah.
We got to get back to that. Our legislators need to understand we have to heal our community, and then we have to give our community opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess ditto, huh?
It is kind of a ditto. I'm piggybacking off of that. It is, there's not the disparity because of our culture. I would say we are thriving even in spite of the disparity.
Oh, yeah.
We are thriving because of our culture, I think. Despite the hardship that's befallen a lot of people, and it has been forgotten in a lot of ways. At the risk of sounding like a socialist, I do believe that healthcare is a human right. That's what I believe. So I do believe that a lot of things could be fixed with better health care for people. I don't think anybody should worry about going to the ER if they need to go to the ER. You know, I don't think anybody should be having to count pennies if they're about to go into cardiac arrest or have a stroke. You know, it should never be like that. So I think healthcare is a piece of this. I can't get away from that. So there's that. Coalitions like STAND, I think, really can speak to this better because they just see every element of this working together. And it seems like community is the cornerstone of all that. Community and localized care, because that is just part of the culture. Is like somebody from here doesn't want to hear that you got to go to Texas to get better. You want to be able to stay here.
It's a good place, but
right.
You know, we just you know, we need to be able to. If we got addicted in our community, we need to be able to heal
in our community.
One last thing I want to say.
Yes, absolutely.
Is also in Appalachia, and I see this with my kids, and you know, in the coalition and stuff like that. We had one child that was just repeatedly smoking pot, and he kept on popping on drug screens and doing stuff, and he wasn't going to school, wasn't doing this, wasn't doing that, and then we just, all right, we're going to set up a plan and we're going to do this. So we had an administrator was like, he's still smoking dope and blah 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 blah, and I said, but he's coming this child's coming to school.
Yeah.
Their grades have improved, their disciplinary actions have gone away. I'm not advocating for this to happen, but we've got to redefine our concept of success. What's successful to me may not be successful to you. Sometimes success for people in addiction is being able to take your kids to Walmart every other weekend. That's success.
It is success.
Sometimes success is just maintaining a job at the local convenience store for 6 months to a year.
Right.
Sometimes success is just paying your bills.
Yeah.
Okay? So we got to meet everybody where they're at and celebrate them when they're doing good.
Yeah.
Don't think that this grandiose big house and all this other stuff is success, because it's not.
Yeah.
You define success for yourself.
Well, you can have the grandiose big house and be drunk in the basement of it every day. Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, being out in the open, being an active member in your community, being a present mother, being, you know, and then holding down a job, you know, after
Not causing harm to yourself or
not
others.
causing harm to yourself or others.
Yeah. So, I mean,
And
that's
eventually being able to
success.
give back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say one more thing to the churches out there that actually do want to help people. I would say meeting people where they're at even means spiritually.
Yeah.
Don't do that crap where you just are like, well, we'll feed you pizza, but you got to sit through this hour-long sermon kind of thing. I mean, I would say really, if you really, really care about people, you really care about their souls, meet them where they're at, listen to them,
Yes,
offer
listen.
them resources, and not, I mean, going on a mission trip somewhere, put up, you know, be giving people vaccines. Don't be just, you know, going to spread the good word without works.
Somebody come around with one of them boxes. We're collecting donations for boxes for the whatever and blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, are any of them going to go to the housing project right over here?
Right.
These kids are hungry. School's out. They're hungry.
Right.
They ain't got anything to eat.
Right.
What about them? They ain't got shoes.
Yeah.
They ain't got shirts. They ain't got no food. I said, what about them? Yeah. That cost you a lot. I mean, you can save postage on that. Just go right over here.
Right over here.
We're not going to get into that
I know.
version of it.
But anyway, I would.
Yeah, and churches are a major portion. Churches could solve the transportation issues.
Oh, yeah.
Churches could solve many, many things. Sometimes support is just taking on somebody in recovery and not really even having to do much with them, but texting them once a day and said, you have worth and value. You are meant to be in this world.
Right.
We're praying for you today. Something like that. Just some encouragement, because sometimes nobody gets any encouragement whatsoever anywhere. Okay? So we're getting off on this, but we got to do that. That's a whole different segment.
That's a whole different
You know, but for us, that's what Stan tries to do. That's what we do. This right here, trying to keep her sober, but she's doing great. I'm joking. So, but
it's one day at a time, though.
one day at a time.
One day, the day he doesn't text me might be the day I hit it again.
We're all in the family. We're like, oh, that's Carlette. When you gonna do me? When you gonna do me? Are you gonna do me? Oh, do me, Andi Marie, do me. We do that stuff all the time.
I know. I've got an Odell Brummett character brewing. Oh my God! So it's just everybody takes bets on who's the next character based on. Is what it is.
And then we're all the time. So is that Carletta? Is that Jean? Is that his? Is that? I said, listen. She told me they just evolve in her head and some mannerisms are the same, but it's not one specific person. And they said, that's Carletta. I said, well, that one kind of is Carletta. But but anyway.
Yeah.
But keep on pushing that Appalachia culture out there because people like it, because they miss it,
and
they want it. I mean, it's real.
I mean, my dream would be to have a spread of these characters in Vogue magazine.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's just like the hillbilly version of like Little Eddie Grey Gardens kind of stuff, so that it's just that people like this is culture.
Yeah,
like this is.
I just had a vision. Yeah. All these characters on Broadway. How you gonna do them all by yourself?
A one-woman show.
A one-woman show.
We're already working on it.
Okay, you got it.
It's a musical.
I had a vision.
Yeah, hollering.
Hollering.
That's
the
what it's
Hank's
called.
coming and telling me what
Yeah.
you're gonna do.
Yeah.
So, we're speaking hillbilly now.
My family, you better wrap it up with Jesus somehow.
Have a message in it.
Have a message in it.
Thank the Lord at the
Yeah. Did you hear that? She thanked God.
She showed her teeth, but she thanked God.
This is gonna be a tough edit.
This is gonna be a tough edit. Yeah, I'm sorry.
But no, truly, these are some amazing points and insight, and yeah, again, for a part of the country that has been targeted and yet overlooked, it's nice to see homegrown work being done at the cultural level, at the healthcare level, at the connection to care level, policy level, and so on. So you both have really, I think, done more than you might think. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
To get our word out there.
Yeah, we like to
our
talk.
Awesomeness.
Andi Marie and Trent, thank you both for joining me on the Smart Policy Podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.